Good morning. It is 8:30. It is the 28th day of December, the 28th day of Vlogmas, and I am your grumpy guide to all things gaming, Lord OGGM, with another OGGM adventure / year in review. So let's review the OGGM Adventures year. What is the number one thing I have repeatedly talked about this year? And of course, it is that I hate 5th edition. But before we go any further, let's just paraphrase that again, as I have repeatedly. I am only speaking about my personal experience with 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons here in Ventura, so your experience with 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons has probably been completely different than mine, and hopefully way more positive. So, there are a lot of issues I have with 5th edition expectations, 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons culture, 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons individualities. 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, the system, is perfectly fine. It's not great. It's not horrible. It's got some good ideas. It's got some bad ideas. It's the most D&D version of Dungeons & Dragons we've had since, I don't know, 3rd? I mean, 4th, it didn't really feel like D&D. It definitely felt like coming back home when I first started reading it and first started playing it. I mean, I enjoy it. But my personal experience as a player, 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, is because I haven't actually, I don't think, played in a 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons game. I have played in a lot of D20 fantasy games using the SRD Dungeons & Dragons engine. But to play 5th edition exactly the way it's written, without any hacks, without any cuts, without any paste, without any, I think I can do this better than what Wizards of the Coast has done, without any, I'm going to homebrew this. No, I have not played in a single 5th edition, set in the Forgotten Realms, as written game. Not a single 5th edition game. There was one that was sort of close, but still the guy was trying to run Castle and Crusades OSR using 5th edition. So, I don't think I've actually played in a 5th edition game. As for running a 5th edition game, I may have run 2 that came close to. I ran one game that was set in the Forgotten Realms where I was running a Forgotten Realms module in Candlekeep. So that with 3 or 4 people whose only resource was the player's handbook. And that's probably the closest I've got to a true 5th edition game. That, and of course, running Tomb of Annihilation, which is probably the best experience I've had as a DM running 5th edition. And that was as close to 5th edition by the book as till it got to the weird stuff towards the end. But as written, I mean, I ran the module as written. It was set in the Forgotten Realms. I, for the most part, only allowed the player's handbook and the stuff that was Forgotten Realms specific. Then towards the end, as more splat books became available, people started coming in. But for the most part, every D&D 5th edition game I've run, even when I've tried to make it as close to as written, inevitably either I fudged a rule or or we all agreed, let's change this. Or somebody would come to my table and bring in something from a splat book or from an Earth Arcana or from a book I didn't have and try and make it something other than 5th edition. Which has led a lot of people to come to the conclusion, I don't like 5th edition. Which is completely untrue. I don't care about 5th edition one way or the other. It's a tool. This is a tool. What I hate is the 5th edition culture, which I've repeatedly. And we can blame some of this on Critical Role, but not all of it, because people don't love Critical Role because they're playing Dungeons & Dragons. People love Critical Role because of the individuals who are playing in that production. They could be playing any role-playing game. They just happen to be making hand over fist cash over the fact that they switched from Pathfinder to Dungeons and Dragons and then to 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons when it became available. And now they've taken that and made their own world and their own rules and their own games. So they're not playing D&D. But we don't love them because, oh, wow, they're playing D&D. We love them because of who they are and the way they play and the way they tell their story. Their popularity has nothing to do with the product, everything to do with them as individuals. One of the problems coming out of Critical Role, as I repeatedly spoken of over and over and over again, is that expectation that so many people had that their game would be just like what they saw in Critical Role, that their DM would be just like Critical Role, that they would run just like Critical Role, they would play just like Critical Role, and then that level of toxicity when it didn't happen. I have been verbally attacked, threatened, harassed because I didn't run my game like Critical Role and, didn't really want to compete with Matt Mercer. I have seen people physically bully other people and use Critical Role as their excuse at a D&D table. So my relationship with the Critical Role has been toxic and negative. Doesn't mean yours is. You could love it and fine because if they've done nothing else, they've brought money back to the D&D coffer and they've brought people to the table. Some of those people stuck with it and realized that the game is more than what they saw. Others were like, well, fuck you. It's nothing like I saw. You're nothing like Mercer, and left. But whatever. 1 out of every 10 turned out to be a decent person. So great. Whatever. The problem is not 5th edition D&D. The problem, and I just saw this again today on a video that some guy put out about 5th edition and the expectations of 5th edition. And the problem from my personal experiences, as I have repeatedly said, and I will end the year saying again, is not 5th edition the system. It's the expectations from 5th edition, from Dungeons and Dragons in general, because I've also seen this with Pathfinder, but mostly with 5th edition, that it's going to be something it's not. Dungeons and Dragons is Dungeons and Dragons. It always has been Dungeons and Dragons, always will be Dungeons and Dragons. It will never be anything other than what it is. Repeatedly, every experience I've had with 5th edition has been dealing with people trying to fix it, who have these expectations that it's going to be something other than it is, and then trying to make it fit those expectations by changing the rules. I mean, I can't tell you how many times in the 5th edition experiences I've had, again, these are my experiences, when I've been told, no, you can't. No, I'm not using it. No, I've banned that. No, I've changed that. No, I'm not using that world. No, I'm not allowing that race. No. 90% of my 5th edition experience is coupled with the word, no, you can't, or, oh, I've changed that. I have this expectation that 5th edition is going to be something it's not. And I am going to punch, squeeze, threaten, cajole, beat, blend, grind the 5th edition rule set to try and make it something it's not. And when it doesn't do what I want it to do because I have this expectation, I'm going to get upset and I'm going to end my game, or I'm going to terrorize my players, or my players are going to be all upset because this is not doing what I want it to do. Well, this tool is only built to do one thing. 5th edition. To expect it to do anything other than 5th edition is the problem I have with 5th edition. And my response has continuously, since this started, and will going into 2021 probably be the same response. Instead of trying to make this something it's not, try and find the thing that will do what you want. This tool cannot land an airplane. It can only cut paper. This tool cannot build a bridge. It can draw the blueprints for the bridge, but if you put this on the construction site and tell it to build a bridge, it's just going to fall over because it's a tool. The tool has one purpose. This 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons is a tool. It has one purpose. It's built to do one thing: tell Dungeons & Dragons stories. Something I have still not done in 5th edition. I still don't think I have actually played a 5th edition game the way it is written. I'm using this book instead of the other book because my player's handbook is covered with stickers, as you've seen. So this is just an easier, more recognizable. Not that, whatever. It's the second most D&D adventure that I own, other than Tomb of Annihilation. Got 2. So, my problem, again, is not 5th edition. It's the toxic culture and the expectations that seems to have come to 5th edition, to Dungeons & Dragons. And again, my experience, yours might be completely different, so hopefully yours has been better than mine. And this constant expectation, this constant wall I keep running into as a player and as a GM of it being expectation that 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons is going to be other than what it is. And then repeatedly running into game masters trying to make 5th edition other than what it is, to the point where I'm being, me and other players at their tables are being told, no, you can't, no, I'm not using it, no, I've changed that, no, I've broken that, no, I'm not allowing that, no, 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 no. Rather than attempting to find the game system that will do what they want. Try and make Dungeons & Dragons something it's not, or try and find the game that will do what you want. Find the tool that will do what you want. I need to cut a piece of paper. I'm going to use this. That's not going to work. This will. So in closing, as I end 2020, the pajama apocalypse, as my friend called it, and I love that word, so yeah, hashtag pajama apocalypse. The problem is not with 5th edition. And again, I just saw this in a video again with this guy who was like, blah, blah, 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, blah, blah, this, blah, blah, that, expectation. 5th Dungeons & Dragons should be doing this. No, it should not. All Dungeons & Dragons should be doing is being Dungeons & Dragons. And being the best version of Dungeons & Dragons it can be before the nightmare that 6th edition is probably going to be. And 5th edition is a pretty damn good version of Dungeons & Dragons. There are better games that do the exact same thing much better. There are games that do the exact same thing much worse. Only D&D does D&D because it's D&D. To expect it to be anything other than D&D is my problem with D&D. I would love to go to a game in 2021 where these are the books where we're playing Dungeons & Dragons in the Forgotten Realm. We're going through Storm King's Thunder. I'm allowing the books that are appropriate for Forgotten Realms. I'm not allowing Ravenica because we're not playing Ravenica. But, and it's like, this is the character. I know what to expect from 5th edition. And a 5th edition game, yeah, there might be some critical role level role playing, but mostly it's just going to be tactical, battle map, character optimization, which is fine because that's what it is. Critical Role isn't Critical Role because of the game. Critical Role is Critical Role because of the people who play the game. So expecting this to present you with a Critical Role-like experience is pointless. It is your responsibility to choose whether you're going to sit at the table and play the game like Marisha and Laura and Liam and Matt, or not. And either way is fine, as long as you're having fun and understand that this tool can only do one thing. So that's my problem with 5th edition. Now I'm going to put that away for a while. And as I promised, rather than complain about 5th edition, I'm going to champion other game systems that I think are as good or better. I'll talk to you later. Subscribe!